Let's take a look at files and folders with C Sharp. And to start off with, let's just look at getting information into our program from outside of our program. And first, we'll start with an example of getting information from the command prompt. So we can go to the command prompt and run our program, but there's a shortcut that we can use in Visual Studio. And I'm going to do that, and the way that I get there is that I want to right click and go to properties, and when I do, I can go to debug, and in the command line arguments, and this is just a handy thing that's built into Visual Studio, I can put in some text that I want to input into my program, and I'll make up some file name. And go ahead and save that. Click save. Then I'm going to go back to my program. Go ahead and close that out. Go back to my program. Now, when it comes in from the command prompt, what it does is that these arguments here, it's saying it's going to accept an input from the command prompt as an array of strings, and it's going to store it into args. So let's go ahead and do that. From command prompt, and let's go ahead and add that in, args, and computers start counting from 0, so let's make it the first element in the array, and let's go ahead and run that. Debug, start debugging, and it does what I told it to, which is it from CP show whatever came in from the command prompt, and that's what that is. So this is just an example of showing you how to get information into your program from outside of your program. And let's get a little more involved now. Let's start working with files and folders. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this because I don't have much room. And in fact, let me, okay, so let's start with this. Right now, the project that I created was file system stuff. Inside of that project is a class by default. It's called program, and inside of that program class is one method. Well, for example, let's create another method inside of my class. Make sure that I put it outside of my main method, but leave this method inside of this class. So here's the beginning and end of the class, and making sure that we keep it outside of this main method. Let's create an example of creating a folder. Okay. I'm going to pop some code in here. And so public static void, and then a name that we just made up, create a new directory or new folder. And since this is a method, I've got the parentheses, and then I've got my opening and closing curly braces. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is that I want to know I want to create my folder name. So a variable, directory name, and VAR, we've worked with integers and doubles and even objects and other things. May not have worked with the var before, and it's just a way to allow the compiler to determine what this is. And in this case, we're assigning test folder to dir name. And so this is the name of the folder that we're going to create, test folder. By default, where is it going to place this new folder? Well, by default, it's going to place it in our program that we've created in the bin folder. Let's go take a look at that. I'm working with Windows, so I'm going to go to Explorer, and I'm working with Visual Studio and in the projects folder, and this is the name of the project that I created, so I'm going to drill down in here. And in here, I'm going to drill down in here. There's a bin folder, and in the bin folder, in debug, this is where I'm going to place it. By default, this is where it's going to go. So I'm not going to change the path to the root directory or anywhere else. I'm just going to leave it in here. So this is where I'm going to create this folder. So let's go ahead and do that. Move that out of the way. But first, I want to know, does this directory already exist by the name test folder? If it does, if that's true, if it already exists, then I've got a message saying, hey, this folder already exists, and then it will exit out. But if it doesn't exist, then I'm going to go ahead and create this directory, and I'm going to give it the name test folder. Now these commands, let me do this. I'm going to put now these methods are available to us in the system.io. So if I'm not using system.io, it won't know what this means. It says the name directory does not exist. That's because we're not using system.io. So make sure that I'm using system.io. Okay. And so it's going to create that directory, and the next line just says you created the directory with the name whatever. Okay, so it's not in here now. Let's go ahead and call this method, run this method. So I'm going to go back up to my main method, and right before my console read line, I'm just going to call that method, and it was create a new directory. It's a method, and that's it. So let's go ahead and run this and see if it will jump down here, test to see if that folder is already there. If it's not there, then it will create a directory for me called test folder. Let's go ahead and run this and make sure that works okay. Debug, start debugging. And it said you just created a directory with the name test folder. Okay, let's go back to File Explorer, and there it is. We created a folder called test folder. Now there's nothing in there, but we did create the folder. Okay, so that's the first part. Now that we've created a folder, let's put a file in there. Okay, so I'm going to collapse this down, and I'm going to collapse this down. So we've created a directory, created a folder. Now let's put a file in that folder, and that's how. Let's see how to do that. So pop some more code in there and created another method, public static void, gave it a name of create a file and add text to the file. Okay, here's the beginning and end of that file, and here's what we did is that we created a string called lines, and this string just contains some text, and this is the text that we're going to add to this folder. That we're going to add to this file. I threw in a new line at the end of this text. Okay, so where is this file going to be written? Where is it going to be created at? Well, it's going to be in test folder, and it's going to be called write.text, write-text.text. Okay, and we put this little @ symbol on there, and this saves us from, it used to be you had to put in double slashes to keep the path right, but this is the handy little thing that we use just to be able to designate where our folder is going to be at. And so this is going to be relative to that bin folder. It's going to be in that bin folder, but in that bin folder we created this test folder. So it's going to be in that test folder. And again, this is the name that we're going to give it. Now, we want to check to see if this file does not exist. And here's the file path that we just created. So we're going to go down there and we're going to check to see, is this file already there? Is it already in that folder? And if it does not exist, then we're going to go to that file path and we're going to add these lines, in this case a line, to this file. Okay, and then since that's, we're going to say it's successful, we're going to say the text was added. Now, if that file already exists, which would be the else clause in our if statement, then it's just going to say that file already exists. Okay, so let's try that. Let's see if we can create a file called write-text.text and add it to that test folder that we just created. Okay, so I'm going to collapse this back down so we can see everything and expand my main, and I want to call this method, and I call it by saying the name of the method, which is create a new file and add text to it. It's a method. Okay, let's see if that works. So I'm going to go debug and start debugging, and it says hey, test folder already exists. Okay, that's all right. And then I press the enter key and it says okay, we've added that file. Whoops, can you see that? It said we added that text. We added that file with that text. Okay, so let's go check. I'm going to go back to my folder. Here's the test folder that it said it was already exists, which it does. I'm going to drill down there, and there's that file that we just added, and I'm going to open that, and in that file is that text that we added, that string that we added to our file. So there it is. Okay, let's do one more thing. Collapse those down. Let's put in pop in some new code. And this is public static void, a new method, making sure I'm keeping it outside of these methods that I've already created, but still inside of this class. So, okay. And done something a little bit different here. Did a try catch. Oops. Try catch and wait, I need my catch statement here. So I've got my try, but I didn't put my catch in there. There we go. Okay. So we're going to try this code, and if it's not, if the file isn't there, then it's going to catch that, and it's going to say the file could not be read. Okay. Oops. Okay. Missing a curly brace, which is always a problem. Okay. So in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to use this method to read the text from the file and display it. And in this case, we're using something called stream reader. And we're going to go to that test folder, and we're going to go open that file, and we are going to read all of this text or string until the end of the file and store it into read lines. Really, there's only one line, but we're reading everything that's in that file. Okay, but the only thing different about this is that we're using a try catch, and we're just reading from the file, and we're using stream reader to do it. Now this using statement, the file input and output is like a pipe. If you have a water pipe, you have water running through the pipe from one point to another point. Well, when you're reading in files, what you're doing is you're reading in a stream of characters. And not just characters, but a stream of bytes, more accurately. And so this stream is coming down the pipe, and what the using does is it kind of clears that pipe out before we start using it. So it flushes everything out, closes off the pipe, and gets it ready to be read from or to store information to. So we can use this using statement for that purpose. Okay, so we're going to read from this file, and we're going to display any lines that were read from the file. Okay, so let's call this one, and it was called read and display text from file. Okay, so go back to my main method, and the next thing we're going to do is read and display text from file. Okay, now let's do that. No guarantees on how this is going to look. Start debugging. And let's see. Let's move that over a little. Now, task folder already exists. Yeah, it already exists in that. And then it comes down and whoops. So it read that, but it didn't pause the output. Okay. Well, I guess I need to highlight this and move this down there so it will pause at the right place. Let me run this again. Debug, start debugging. And already exists. Here's some here is some text for this file. So it went in and read the text and displayed the string of data that was in that file. Okay. What else can we do? We've created a folder, we've written a file, we've added text to the file, and then we've read from that file. Let's append to the end of that file. Let me collapse this down. And I need to go create. Okay. Yeah, because I'm still running. Debug. Stop debugging. Okay. So I'm going to go create a new method to append to the end of that file. Okay. Okay. So append text to that file. I could make these global so I wouldn't have to repeat this information, but let's go ahead and leave that the way it is. Again, this could be global, but here's the path to get to that text file. Here's my variable. This is the text that we're going to add. We're going to add this as extra text. Okay. And then another line. I don't need to put that in there because I've already got a new line character. Okay. And then I'm going to append or add onto this file. And I'm going to append this string. Okay. Okay, so append text to the file. And I need to go up to my main method and call this one. Oh, need to. So I'm going to collapse that down and expand my main method, and then I'm going to call this one. Oops. Public static void append text to file. Okay. Append text to file. There it is. Okay. Now this is just going to append the extra string to the end of that text into that file. So I want to be able to see it. So I'm going to read and display the text again. So after I've appended a string or text to that file, I want to go in and read and display that text file again so I can see the string that was added on there. Okay, and then it should pause. Got that in the right place. So let's see, debug, start debugging, and let's say, okay, test folder already exists, yes. So it displays the text, and then it goes in and displays the extra text with an additional line in there. Okay, so we've appended on this text in our file. And in fact, let's go take a look at the file now that it's been created. I'm going to go ahead and stop this. And I'm going to go ahead and look at the file. So drill down in here. So here's the first line that we put in. Oops, here's the first line that we put in there, and here are the two extra lines that we added. Okay, so what we did in this exercise is we created a folder on our computer, and we could save it to we could create the folder on our computer, on the server somewhere, or on any location that we have access to. We can also delete the folder, we can move the folder, we have the I/O. System.io, with System.io we have access to a lot of classes and methods that we can use to manipulate files and folders. So we can create, delete, move, append, clear. We can do a lot of things with those. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and leave it there.